My name is Velandrasso, and for 19 years I served as Chief Engineering Officer aboard the Halcyon Drift, a deep-pressure research submersible operating in the trench fields of Marosesset, a world that is 91% ocean and the rest barely worth naming. I am writing this account because the official report is 3 lines long, and 3 lines is not enough. 3 lines makes it sound like nothing happened. Something happened. We had taken on a human crew 6 weeks earlier, on loan from a survey consortium none of us had heard of and none of us expected much from. Their vessel was a relic by our standards, a riveted whole thing called the Coraline that our pressure engineers looked at the way you look at a tool from a museum. Interesting, maybe even a little charming, certainly not something you'd trust your life to below 400 fathoms. Our own hull could go deeper, faster, with better margins on paper. We brought the humans along because their boat had a manipulator arm suited to old cable work, and because the survey contract required redundancy, and because, I will admit this honestly, it amused some of the science team to have them aboard. A curiosity, living proof that other species had crawled up out of their own oceans too, just slower, just clumsier, with hulls riveted instead of grown. Their senior diver was a man named Holtbregen. He was not young. There was gray through his beard and a permanent crease at the corner of each eye from squinting at gauges in low light for most of his life. He spoke little, moved economically, and treated every piece of equipment on that boat, ours or his, like it owed him nothing and he owed it nothing, which I came to understand was simply how he treated everything. He did not perform competence for us. He simply was competent in the unbothered way of someone who has done a thing so many times that doing it has stopped being remarkable to him, even when it remains remarkable to everyone watching. The morning it happened, we were 640 meters down, running a routine line survey along a fault shelf, when a coupling failed on our own primary ballast manifold. Not the Coraline's, ours. The kind of failure that, on paper, gives you 40 minutes before the situation becomes a structural one, and gives you considerably less time than that to fix it, because 40 minutes assumes nothing else goes wrong, and something else always goes wrong. Our automated repair drone could not reach the manifold. The geometry of the access shaft was wrong for its arm, a design oversight nobody had thought to flag because nobody had imagined needing to reach that particular junction by hand. Bregan was already suited when the alarm sounded. I remember this specifically because our own physician, a woman named Sale Oren, who had run 2 decades of pressure physiology work and trusted her models the way the rest of us trusted gravity, told him not to go. Not as an order, she had no authority over him, but as a flat statement of fact, the way you'd tell someone not to step off a ledge. She said, at the depth that manifold sits, with the pressure differential created by the failing ballast cell, a human thoracic cavity has no business holding its shape. Sinus cavities collapse before that. Middle ear before that. You will not get there functional, and if by some accident you do, you will not get back. Bregan looked at the access shaft, looked at his suit gauge, and said something I have turned over in my mind many times since. He said, I've been deeper than this with worse gear than this. Then he went. I want to be precise about what I watched, because precision is the only thing that makes this account worth more than the 3 lines in the official log. I watched our depth telemetry, slave to his suit transponder, climb past 680 meters, past 700, into pressure territory that every model sail Orin that had ever built, models that had survived peer review across 4 research stations, said was incompatible with an unmodified human body performing any task more demanding than holding still and trying not to die. He was not holding still. He was working. We could hear him on the comm, breathing in the unhurried rhythm of a man doing something tedious, narrating the coupling's condition in a voice with no strain in it at all. Not the controlled non-strain of someone suppressing pain, which I have heard from injured crew of several species, and which always has an edge to it, but an actual absence, as if his body had simply declined to file the complaint. Sale stood beside me at the readout with her hand over her own mouth, watching numbers that should have meant a body in catastrophic failure, and instead meant a man tightening a coupling bolt by feel because his light had fouled with silt. He fixed it. 712 meters, 17 minutes outside, any margin we had ever bothered to calculate, because we had never needed to calculate past the point where the answer was obviously death. And he fixed it. And then he came back up the shaft at the same unhurried pace he'd gone down it, like a man climbing out of a basement after replacing a fuse. When he was back aboard the Coraline and out of his suit, Sale insisted on a full physiological scan. I think by that point she needed it more than he did. He shrugged and let her run it, the way you let a child check under the bed for monsters because it matters more to the child than to you. The readout came up on the holo display between us, and I remember the quality of the silence in that room, because it was not the silence of relief. It was the silence of three people recalculating, in real time, something they had each privately believed to be settled science. There was no barotrauma, no sinus rupture, no middle ear collapse, no pulmonary injury, not even the diffuse capillary bruising you'd expect from a hard but survivable dive. His tissue density readings, his cavity pressure equalization curves, every value Sales models used as inputs, they were inside normal range. Not recovering toward normal, inside it. As if 712 meters had been a long elevator ride and not an event his own species textbooks, when we later requested and translated them, described in the same tone we use for things that simply cannot be survived. Sale ran the scan twice more over the following days on different equipment, partly out of rigor and partly, I think, because she did not trust the first result and wanted it to be wrong. It was not wrong. She asked Bregan, finally, plainly, whether he had felt anything at all going down that shaft. He thought about it for a moment, the way you think about a question you've genuinely never been asked before, and said his ears had popped a little on the way past 400, the way they always did, and after that he'd mostly been annoyed about the silt fouling his light. That was the whole answer. Annoyed about the light. I want to tell you that we treated this as an isolated event, an anomaly, a single extraordinary man rather than a baseline fact about his species. I would be lying. In the weeks after, Sale quietly requested medical record from two more human vessels operating in our sector, through channels that I am not certain she was authorized to use, and found the same shape of numbers and divers who had never been told they were anything but ordinary. Not all of them matched Bregan exactly. He was, even among his own people, apparently considered unusually unbothered by the work, but all of them sat well past the line our models called absolute. What unsettled me most, in the end, was not the depth and not the readout. It was watching Bregan coil his own line afterward methodically, the way he'd done every other evening of the survey, while three of us stood there trying to recalibrate what we thought we knew about what a body could be asked to do and simply refused to break. He never once understood why we were staring. To him, it had been a coupling bolt and a fouled light, 640 meters underwater on a Tuesday. The official log says, minor ballast repair completed by visiting crew, no injuries reported. 3 lines. I have decided this account will sit beside it, because somebody eventually is going to need to understand what those 3 lines actually mean the way I now understand it, lying awake some nights since, that the line we draw for what a body can survive is not their line. It is only ours, and we drew it without ever once asking them where theirs actually is. I do not believe we have found it yet.